Well, good morning. It's almost time to start the meeting. And just to avoid any conflicts or long-winded conversations, I would like to offer a couple of observations and guidelines. One would be that this commission is meeting today to discuss and vote on the matters on the agenda, nothing else. And its prerogative to run this meeting is given to the president, and those decisions will be final. If you want to speak, please do. Speak up, be polite, announce your name, and tell us why you're speaking. And at this point, you have 2 minutes, and we will time that.
Why two?
Because we said so.
5.
2. So, when all else fails, go to rule number 1. The president is right. By state ethics code, you all probably know that commissioners cannot discuss any item on the agenda outside of an open and properly advertised meeting. So the commissioners are given an agenda ahead of time, and they can do their own research, probably to find what decision they would like to have on the items on there. So if you would all please stand, we'll have a prayer and a pledge. Most gracious and heavenly Lord, open our eyes to behold the beauty of your creation and all the blessings you have given us. May we be guided by your Spirit in the ways of justice, truth, and peace. Grant that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of your favor and glad to do your will, and save us from pride and arrogance, and give us wisdom to do that which is pleasing to you. We ask for your strength that we may faithfully serve the duties of our office and promote the well-being of all people. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And this is the regular meeting of the Cabell County Commission on Thursday, December 9th, 10 o'clock. And the first item on the agenda is to approve the regular commission agenda.
Move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Next item on the agenda would be the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting of October 14th, 2021.
Move to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Next item would be to approve the erroneous assessments, land consolidation, split tickets, probate documentation from the county clerk's probate office.
Move to approve.
I second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Next item is purchase orders, number 22-106423 through number 22-106603, pay jackets and monthly payments to Fifth Third for fuel card purchases.
Move to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. That is approved. We have 2 people who have registered to speak. The first would be Jan King.
Yes, sir. First, I'm Jane King. I'm from Salt Rock, and I'd like to ask 6 questions, and I have a short statement afterwards. And then hopefully I can get some answers to my questions. And when I'm referring to we, I mean the taxpayers of Cabell County. First of all, I'd like to know, how did we find or hire GeoWeb or LLC or Doug McKenzie when they do not even have a valid website? Were we aware that the same owner of GeoWeb / Doug McKenzie has been sued by several counties in West Virginia for not providing services contracted regarding mapping in the past? When was this decision made, and at what what meeting to hire Doug McKenzie GeoWeb? Was the map based on current census? How much did we pay GeoWeb and Doug McKenzie? How many bids were submitted for that same process? Calhoun and Work County specifically has issues with inaccuracies with the maps. Calhoun Commissioner David Burr said, quote unquote, the mapping was out of kilter and just not accurate. This can all be found along with the other county suits and complaints in the Herd Herald.
If you're directing those questions to me, I don't have those answers. I think those questions would be directed not in this meeting, as a matter of fact, to the county clerk. If Mr. McKenzie would care to answer any of them, that's fine. If he doesn't, then he doesn't. If that takes care of that, next we have Kimberly Herbert Maynard, who also has questions or has discussion on redistricting.
I'm Kimberly Herbert Maynard. I live in Huntington. And when the bids are submitted to the county, is there any type of background check, contacting of referrals, et cetera, before a decision is made on who gets the jobs? I asked this question because Tuesday I spent about an hour and a half researching Doug McKenzie and GeoWeb LLC and gave Jim the information to research further. Now, if we can find this much information, out on one person by using public internet sites, why can't the county commission do the same? I'm sure you have access to more places to do research on people and companies before accepting their bid than I do. I, for one, is extremely sick and tired of elected officials making back alley deals with every Tom, Dick, and Harry that is not in the best interest of their constituents. Need I remind the county commission, you were voted into your positions by we the people, and you work for us. You received a paycheck because of the taxpayers of Cabell County. Just in the past year or so, the county commission sold, I believe it was 3 parcels of land in Ona for a fraction of the cost. However, you slung mud and was right down nasty to Carl and wouldn't budge an inch on the asking price at the airport after hundreds of thousands of dollars he spent cleaning up, repairing, remodeling, and addition of the airport cafe campground. At one of the meetings, I asked the county commission, so what is your hidden agenda? And I asked the same question today. What is your hidden agenda for wanting to remap the districts? Because I guarantee it's not in the best interest of those who you work for. If your hidden agenda is to keep a certain person from running in their current district, that is called gerrymandering. And when did the county commission get into the real estate business?
Thank you.
I will close by saying this. As a voting taxpayer for Cabell County, and since the current county commission has a history of zero competence to represent those who voted you into your position, I ask the 3 of you to turn in your resignation by 4:30 today.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, Jim, that the redistricting is required by law.
Well, we'll cover that when we get to the item on the agenda, I believe, if that's okay.
Sure.
We now have bids to be open for the construction of the new sheriff's own field office and garage.
First bid we have is Land Corps Builders LLC, 1027 Stewart Street, Milton, West Virginia, 25541. Phone number 304-390-4077. Their bid form shows the base bid of $1,556,700.
Did you say they're from Milton?
Yes. Second one is PJH LLC, PO Box $135,245. So, we had a mandatory pre-bid meeting last month, and these are the two bids we received from the people. I think there were 11 contractors that showed up.
11 at the pre-bid. We've answered numerous questions to those 11 people for the last 3 weeks, so we didn't really do what we did.
So,
Beth, what was the name of that company?
the last one is PJH
Okay.
LLC.
Give those to the sheriff for his study and
Yes, the sheriff and Chad will take a look at them, and the commission has the right to refuse all bids as well.
then we'll move on to the regular agenda. Item 21-12-09-277 is an interim report and recommendation of the Judiciary Commissioner regarding the estate of Jeffrey Eldon Paul.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I've reviewed Mr. Fletcher's recommendations. However, I do not agree with his recommendations. And the reason being, he's recommending that the father be appointed as the personal representative of the estate during this interim period of time. And as you may recall from previous meetings, the will of the decedent specifically states that he does not want any living relative to receive anything. And then further, he says, not one dime of this money is to find its way to any living family member or relative, not to father or sister, and definitely not to my biological mother. So obviously, we're here to try to give credence to the wishes of the writer of the will. If the validity of the will is determined not to be valid, then of course the father would be able to do whatever he wishes, as whether he would want to serve or he becomes an heir. But at this point in time, until that will is determined valid or non-valid, it is my recommendation that the sheriff be appointed the curator of the estate, and by that his responsibility, which he has agreed to do, is to take under his management and maintenance of the assets of the estate, and to review any creditor's claims that somebody might wish to present, until such time as the validity of the will is determined, at which time he would then step aside. So it's my recommendation to this commission that we reject the report of the fiduciary commissioner, and in lieu thereof appoint the sheriff as curator of the state until the validity of the will is determined.
What's the time frame for that?
What?
Or what is the time frame for the validity of the will to be
Well,
determined? Typically.
the fiduciary commissioner will conduct a hearing. When we're talking about a holographic will, that's one that's written in the handwriting of the testator. There are 3 things that have to be done. It has to be in his writing or his or her writing. It has to be signed by him or her, and it has to conduct or set forth a testamentary intent of the testator. So those are the things I think that Mr. Fletcher would try to determine, and Mr. Riker, who represents the father who's contesting the will, would then have the opportunity to present whatever he deems appropriate to determine that the will is not in fact valid. So that's my recommendation to this commission.
Can we recognize by the commission?
Oh, yes.
May it please the commission, I'm Paul Reichert. I represent Mr. Eldon Paul, who is the father of the decedent. To revisit this matter, I believe it was September 23, we were in front of the commission before. The commission determined there were 2 issues present, and 2 issues they wished to both be referred to Mr. Fletcher, your fiduciary commissioner. It was decided that was the best course of action. One was, what was the proper appointment of a personal representative over the estate? What should that be and who should that be? And number two, the validity of the will. Mr. Fleischer accepted the case, had a status conference. We participated to that point, even though there's absolutely no statutory mechanism for unqualifying someone who's been qualified as personal representative, absent due cause or some reason they've abused their authority. There's just no way to unappoint them. But we decided to participate and go along with the proceedings as the commission directed. Mr. Fleischer conducted that status conference and determined that Mr. Paul was in the best position to continue to exercise those powers, because after all, under bond. What's more important is the principal person who would benefit under this writing, which we have contested, is Ms. Kimberly Stump, who at that conference was present and had no opposition to the appointment of Mr. Paul. So now, for whatever reason, even though Mr. Fleischer was to make that determination, and he issued a written recommendation and prepared an order that would accomplish that by this commission, suddenly we find that Mr. Watson is asking this commission to reverse course and not do that. He still has, Mr. Fleischer still has the issue of validity of the will. Mr. Paul is under bond, just as he was in September 23. There's no statutory mechanism to unappoint someone, just as in the recent case of Dye versus Marion County Commission. The Supreme Court said you can't unprobate a will that you had admitted to probate. You have to simply let the circuit court make that determination. There's no statutory means to unappoint someone who's been appointed as personal representative. I would ask that Mr. Fleischer's recommendation be accepted and that we proceed to whatever hearing is necessary on the validity of the will. There's just no basis for unappointing Mr. Waugh and to defy the recommendations of your fiduciary commissioner. That's what you said to do, and that's what he did, and that's what he recommended.
I would respond by saying that just because Mrs. Stump has agreed to it, she's the named beneficiary in the will, she has no authority whatsoever to determine what this commission does in the way of appointing a personal representative. The bottom line, and Mr. Paul, the father, he steps aside when he was appointed based on what had transpired in these meetings. And we go back to what this will says, and the deceased is saying under no circumstances does he want his father to receive anything. And if that's the case, and his father is now contesting this will, in other words, he wants it to be held invalid, and that's a direct conflict with what the writer of the will is saying. So my recommendation to you stands.
Has the validity of the will been proved?
No, that's to be done.
And if I may respond, that's one of the reasons why someone needs to be over the estate, and that's why Mr. Paul was qualified. As I said, there's no statutory mechanism to allow this disqualification without a hearing and a showing for cause. So he was appointed, he was bonded, and the only other active party to this case, Ms. Stump, has no opposition to that. Based on all of that, Mr. Fleischer recommended that Mr. Paul be appointed. The only person who's opposed to this is Mr. Watson, so far as I can tell, unless this commission adopts his point of view. Mr. Watson, as I understand, pretty much directed that this matter go to Mr. Fleischer. Now, Mr. Fleischer has made his recommendation. He's your fiduciary commissioner. It simply begs some sort of incredulity to determine what the problem is. We will proceed after this to a hearing on the validity of the will, but until we do that, there is no will. And again, your clerk's office qualified Mr. Paul, and he was bonded. So I would ask the commission accept your fiduciary commissioner's recommendation.
It's interesting to note that on the report of Mr. Fleischer, on his signature page, he says recommendation approved, check mark, or recommendation refused, check mark. So he anticipated the possibility of either of those responses.
May it please the commission, of course, you can use your fiduciary commissioner. He has to give you the theoretical option to reject his findings, but that is a recommendation as your fiduciary commissioner.
If Mr. Fleischer's recommendations are rejected, the next step is,
To the appointment of the sheriff as curator of the will, so that the will, the assets of the will be maintained and preserved. Any actions that need to be taken can be taken on behalf of the estate by the sheriff as the curator. And that's part of my recommendation, that he
Okay.
appointed in lieu of the recommendation of Mr. Paul.
and if we reject Mr. Fleischer's, if we accept Mr. Fleischer's recommendation, what happens?
Then Mr. Paul would be appointed administrator of the estate in direct disregard to what the will says.
The will makes no statement as to.
The will says he does not want the father to have anything, do anything with the estate,
There's no
Mr.
statement,
Riker.
there's no appointment of a personal representative. You know that, Mr. Watson.
No, I'm telling you, I'm going by what this man said in the will.
May I speak to the validity of this will?
Yes. Tell us who,
If you go,
Eldon, tell us who you are.
my name is Eldon Paul, I'm the father of this decedent. If you go by the tone and tenor of this piece of paper, which I don't think is legal, that's why I challenged it, you would think that my ex-wife and my daughter and myself are terrible people that didn't care one iota about my son. That could not be further from the truth. Over the years, my ex-wife had given my son thousands and thousands of dollars. My daughter gave him thousands of dollars. At the time this piece of paper was written, the date on it, he was recovering from a back surgery, and I was paying all of his living expenses that at that particular time totaled $78,000. A couple days, a week after this piece of paper was written, I gave him another $3,000 or $4,000. All total, it was over $100,000 I gave him while he was trying to recover. That's why I don't think this will is valid. I don't think that either two things, he wasn't in his right mind, he was under undue influence from the heavy medications that he was taking, or he was under influence of some person. I don't know. But my ex-wife, my daughter, and myself had done nothing but bend over backwards to help my son. So he couldn't even spell his last name right when he wrote the thing at the end of the will. That's why I don't think that it comes close to being legal.
And I understand that, and that's what Mr. Riker's responsibility would be when he has the hearing before Mr. Fleischer. If in fact what you say is proven to be true and the fiduciary commissioner agrees with you and then would hold the will invalid, he would make a recommendation to this commission that he thinks the will is invalid based on the evidence presented to him. And if that's the case, then the will would not be valid, and then consequently what is stated in it has no bearing, which would then allow you to step back into the picture. That's all we're waiting to see is the validity of the will.
What is the outcome final if the will is invalid?
It becomes an intestate estate, in which case the parents are now deemed beneficiaries of the estate, and Mr. Paul would be, and he could be asked to be appointed as the administrator of the estate and go forward as they would like to do now.
Is it appropriate to ask the value of the estate?
We don't really know for sure. There was a life insurance policy which has not been revealed to us, the amount of it, or whether it's valid and who the beneficiary is and so forth. But there's also, as I understand it, a lawsuit pending, and as to whether that becomes valid or not, or something the estate receives. So we don't really have, unless Mr. Riker can inform the court otherwise, as to what he thinks the value of this estate is.
State Police Commission, we do not know of any lawsuit. One life insurance policy that maybe existed during the late Mr. Paul's lifetime probably does not exist now and has lapsed. We would still be investigating as to whether there were any other life insurance policies and what they may be worth. Mr. Paul, my client, therefore went a bond in case such assets did materialize. So if I may just encapsulate this and narrow it down, I don't think Mr. Watson, I know Mr. Watson can't quote to you any law or authority that allows you to unappoint an appointed person representing the state without it being a hearing and for just cause. If that's done totally outside the parameters of law, there shouldn't have to be a need to go to the circuit court for writ of prohibition and a writ of mandamus, which could award us attorney fees and some costs. We should just proceed the way Mr. Fletcher, your fiduciary commissioner, recommended. That will allow us to allow him to get business done under his bond. We'll proceed to the fundamental hearing about the validity of the will as he foresaw in his recommendation. It's the only course that makes sense and is consistent with provisions of law. So we would ask you to, in fact, ratify Mr. Fletcher's recommendation and let us proceed.
If in fact you make a decision to reject Mr. Fletcher's report, then like Mr. Riker says, which he doesn't want to do, he can go to the circuit court and appeal your decision.
Are there obligations of the estate to be taken care of?
Okay, please, the commission, there was business being done after Mr. Paul was appointed. There's mail that's been received. He, of course, froze and didn't open any mail after he was quote-unquote revoked and his appointment rescinded. I've told him not to take any action such as that. Now, there's no validity, or it's questionable validity now about whether he can make an investigation about assets that may exist. He's had to basically stop in his tracks. So that's not getting done. We don't know if it would bear fruit or not, but it's not getting done because his appointment is definitely under this cloud. So if you ratify Mr. Fletcher's opinion, he'll be able to pursue that again, be under bond so that even if he loses his position under the will, he will be protected for anything he could possibly misdeed in any way. So that's why it seems to be an incredibly obvious conclusion on what to do.
The curator, the sheriff, can do exactly the same thing, and the sheriff doesn't, he's already bonded as a sheriff, so there's no concern about that as well.
What's the time frame if we reject the commissioner's opinion and they time frame to get back to where they want to be?
Well, the order would state that the commissioner's report is rejected and in lieu thereof to appoint the sheriff as curator, and that would take place immediately. Then it's up to Mr. Riker if he wants to challenge that in court.
My question is, by rejecting the fiduciary's recommendation to the commission, does that delineate from the standard of practice typically?
What?
Does that delineate from the standard of practice typically?
No, because
By
he's
rejecting that.
indicated, I mean, he, the fiduciary commissioner, realizes that you have the authority to go either way. Normally, we do not have a situation where we normally would reject the fiduciary commissioner's recommendations. However, this will, and what Mr. Paul says may very well be true. I mean, all the money is expended on his behalf and so forth. We don't know that. All we know is what is in this will and what the writer of the will said.
I would like to move that we accept the recommendation of our attorney, Bill Watson.
Any further comments?
I do.
I don't know that you probably can, in the terms of your office so far, look back to the position where you rejected a fiduciary commissioner's recommendations. And this is something that Mr. Fletcher is well aware of the options. Mr. Paul, again, is bonded. He is a relative, immediate relative, and would be an heir at law of the decedent, but he's bonded for anything that might go wrong. To simply say that doesn't matter, or we're going to appoint the sheriff, is completely at odds with legal standards and precedent. I'll again urge us, the commission, not to make us do unnecessary measures in defiance of recent Supreme Court decisions and the absence of any authority for the steps Mr. Watson would like you to take. Again, I would ask you to consider that, please, as you vote.
Well, I think we have the authority to do so. It's just whether it's been the standard practice, since I've been here, it's not been the standard practice, to reject the fiduciary's recommendation. However, I mean, trying to decide the determination of estates has been really one of the most difficult, jobs here as a commissioner, because we're dealing with family members and I mean, not my family, but I tend to go with the intentions of the deceased. What does the deceased say in their will? What was their desire? Now, I know in this instance, there hasn't been a determination of the validity of this will. And that's something that's going to be determined hopefully in the near future. I can understand your point of view, and I know it's a recommendation of what you say of the fiduciary commissioner. However, what would be the harm of a third party such as the sheriff serving as curator until we can determine whether it is a valid will or not?
Commissioner Stone, you have the sheer power to reject your recommendations from the fiduciary commissioner. That's obvious, and that's why you put,
Exactly. Yeah, I
that's why you
understand
put the yes/no blank in the form. What I was saying is under Supreme Court standards, once there's been an appointment made, there's no vehicle without some sort of just cause for misperformance of duties to unappoint them. There's no mechanism for that. That's what I meant by there's no standard law to do that. That's only a circuit court decision at that point, unless there would be hearing that he somehow violated his fiduciary duties. Absent that, there's no mechanism to do it. That's why we're saying with him having been appointed, having been bonded, it's not only appropriate that he go through with it, there's no legal standard to say, there's no lever to pull anymore for the county commission to take it away from him without just cause. And a hearing on that.
I understand.
Are we taking it away from him, or are we merely postponing or withholding, as opposed to taking away, that power from Mr. Paul?
Commissioner Morgan, he was appointed.
Right.
He was appointed. And so there's no mechanism to unappoint him. Now, if later down the road, there's some reason to change fiduciaries over the estate, that can be done, but only for just cause.
So-
And even if this will is admitted to probate, it did not nominate a personal representative. That may happen down the road, but once this appointment's been made, there's no such thing as being able to rescind the appointment or unappoint someone. That option, as I said, like the lever, isn't there to be pulled anymore.
He keeps referring to just cause, and the just cause is the language of the will.
I disagree.
I know you disagree, but that's my feeling.
I understand your feelings.
Okay, and that's my recommendation. There is a motion on the floor.
Well, I have another question before we obtain a second on that motion. What was that court case that you mentioned, Dyer versus?
Dye versus
Dye.
County Commission of Marion County. Mr. Ansel Ramey made me aware of that case. It was just decided, if I'm not mistaken, in September or October of this year. Now, it talks about the inability to unprobate a will. But my point is, it's the same thing. Once the appointment of admission to probate of a will or the appointment of a personal representative is concerned, there's no will left to unappoint without a hearing that he's guilty of some sort of misfeasance of office. But it's Dye versus County Commission of Marion County.
We have a copy of that, and Mr. Ramey indicates that it's not applicable to this particular matter.
Well, perhaps Mr. Ramey should be here to speak to us on this. You provide me with the opinion, then you're free to read it. But it's always good to see people read authorities. That would be great.
Is there a rush, a need to make this decision today? Obviously, we are not attorneys. We have two known attorneys. One says this, one says that. It would seem to me that I would think that maybe we need a third opinion to see if it goes either way, other than Mr. Fleischer also. If it's, if a,
There is mail, there are checks, but I don't know if anything's about the stale date. It takes that additional time to study this.
Well, we meet on December 21st.
we do.
And we could take that time to seek out additional information. I mean, obviously you wanna make the right decision when it comes to, cases like this.
Well,
So, but we have a motion on the table.
no, we have a motion on the floor to refuse the recommendation of the fiduciary commissioner. If it's not seconded, it would die for lack of a second. Is there a second to the motion? Hearing none then, I would suggest that we put the item on the agenda for December 21st. I'm just trying to be careful not to say anything that screws up what we're trying to do. Is that appropriate? Can we?
Yeah, what I would suggest, if that's the situation, is to put it on the agenda for our next meeting and have Mr. Ramey here, because you're looking for a third or another opinion, and let him reflect what he thinks is the right decision.
Well, the original motion to reject dies for lack of a second, so do we have any other motions concerning this item number 277?
No, it doesn't require a second. You didn't provide a motion, but I would like to ask our council to provide me with the Dyer versus Marion County
I have
case,
it
so I
right
can be
here.
looking at it in the next few weeks.
So then, is there a motion to table this item and take it up on December 21st?
I'll make that motion. I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Then we will see you gentlemen on December 21st.
Thank you very much.
The next item is item 278, harm reduction program for the Cabell County Health Department.
Jim, I'd just like to say I can't hear very well. I don't know if
Okay.
you can fix it, but I'm not hearing people very well.
We'll work on that, or we'll speak louder.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Item 278, harm reduction program, Cabell County Health Department.
Ms. Cartmel, can you hear me from here, or should I move closer?
Come right
I
up.
can hear you.
Okay.
Well, I'll come closer. Be sure that as the commissioners are aware, the West Virginia State Legislature passed a law this year that requires licensure for the operation of syringe service programs like the one that we've operated in Cabell County since 2015. I appreciate all the time that the commissioners have taken to study this issue and the educational session that I hope answered your questions. We believe that this law creates a new level of accountability for our program. We welcome it as an opportunity to show our citizens that we meet or exceed statewide standards in our operation. We're here today to ask for your support, which is required for us to continue to operate this essential portion of Cabell County's comprehensive and successful efforts to address substance use disorder in our county. Thank you for your consideration.
Is there a motion to,
Well, I have a few questions. Mostly, I mean, just so that the public can be made aware of, I know we had some conversations about this in the past, but, there was a in 2018, in July, the Herald Dispatch ran a story, and it was when law enforcement under, Hank Dial, had some concern about the needle litter exchange in the community. And there were some changes that were made, and it's, so the participants would be required to return syringes to receive new ones, in an effort to reduce litter syringe. And that they, the participants would receive the same amount in syringes as those returned. Has that been actually happening? Because it's my understanding, based upon the information that we get every month, from the health department on harm reduction, that they're being weighed. It's like all of the needles that are brought in, whether it be in a kiosk, maybe put forth by diabetics, or whether they're participants in the needle syringe exchange program, how are they counted? What is the current practice, and then how would that change under this legislation?
I think our current practice is to count rather than weigh for individual service encounters. We still weigh our syringes because we have to weigh our waste in accordance with the laws of handling infectious waste like syringes. But the actual individual encounters occur on a visual count.
So like say if I'm enrolled in the program, which I think there's, what, 900, was there 900 participants?
We estimate about 900 participants.
So say I'm signed up for that program and I go in and I'm gonna, what's the process? Just, is it, like I go in, I sign up for it, what happens if I'm enrolled in the program?
Do you want the process then, or what's going to happen?
Well, what are the changes? And with the legislation, what's going to be the difference in practice for those enrolled in the program?
We believe, we are not sure how the models were reviewed as far as making the rules to enact this statute, but we believe that our program was used as one of the models, and we anticipate very few changes.
So what about the unique identifiable, the legislation provides that each program that is approved has to have a uniquely identifiable syringe that is unique to that program. What is from the, and I'll obviously show you a picture. This is where I had gone around with a community member in some of the drug houses, and you'll see the needles that are around. So how would they look different than what's given out now? How would they be uniquely identifiable?
Our syringe program distributes only one brand in two sizes, and so we're fairly certain, and we've surveyed other pharmacies. We're pretty sure that we're the only ones giving out that syringe, and if it's not one of that brand in those sizes, then it didn't come from our program. Certainly, regardless of where it came from, if it's littered in the community, we collect it.
So the ones at the Health Right in Charleston, I had toured that program as well, and they barcode specific to the client, and so say they're given 40 needles or whatever, it's attributed to that client and it's documented. And so if there's a needle that's left, a syringe that's left in the community, they can attribute it to that person, and then they get warnings, and if they don't comply, there has to be some type of level of, you know, I mean, you have to be able to follow the rules to some extent, but they can attribute that needle that was littered in the community, whether it be a park or a school or a neighborhood, and they can say, well, you know, you're not being responsible, so you're going to be on probation. We're not going to give you any more needles until you can show us that you can bring in needle for needle exchange. So how are you going to do that when say a client comes in and they just bring in needles that aren't barcoded or attributed to that? Like how is that going to take place?
We have a specific policy by which we address issues of people coming back with fewer syringes than they gave us, and we address it individually with them. Barcoding is one of the approved methods of identifying syringes to the program, but we've not been able to determine a manner by which we could barcode and maintain the infection control standards that are required, and we would also see that as an onerous increasing cost. So we've adopted a different standard, and it does meet the standards of the statute.
But it seems like Health Right in Charleston can do that without it being a burden on them.
I can't speak to Health Right. I don't know how they do that. And I don't know what their burden is.
Your, the proposed program that you're asking us to approve does meet the standards that the state health department has recommended, correct?
We will not receive a license unless we meet the standards established by OFLAC.
Okay.
Okay, my last question, I guess, would be, so I'm hearing you, you're not going to just weigh them, you're going to count them, so it's gonna be, client comes in, you give them 40 needles, when they come back, you're gonna count 40 needles?
We're going to count.
And then if they don't bring in 40 needles, they still get the bag of needles, new needles? Or how does that work?
We have a policy that establishes how many they will receive based on how many they bring back.
Okay, so that's a written policy, or will
Yes,
be?
it is.
Okay.
And it will have to be approved by OFLAC before we receive licensure.
Well, there's an article in the paper recently in the Herald Dispatch, trying to see the date of it, November 18th, and it says that there's been a 62% increase in fatal overdoses in the state. And I would think that, you know, you have a harm reduction program. Well, yeah, this might address the HIV aspect of it, you know, because the HIV is costly to treat or whatever. But it doesn't diminish the fact that more people are dying. So if the program is successful and you're bringing people in the hopes of getting them treatment, I mean, how does that correlate?
That states West Virginia statistics. Cabell County has actually improved in its overdose deaths since 2017. Well, I think we peaked in 2018, but certainly between that time and 2020, we reduced overdose deaths in our county substantially. And that's largely because of the comprehensive effort, not so much from syringe services. Syringe services itself does nothing to reduce overdose other than to be a touch point for naloxone distribution, education, and entry into recovery.
Are you aware of this? I found a study, it was done by the Department of Economics, Vanderbilt University, and it talks about, or syringe exchange programs helpful or harmful, new evidence in the wake of the opioid epidemic. And the study was quite lengthy, and I've got a copy of it, but it talks about how they found that SEP, which is syringe exchange programs, decrease HIV diagnoses up to maybe 18%. But they present new evidence that the syringe services increase rates of opioid-related mortality and hospitalizations, suggesting that needle exchanges alone may be less effective than other interventions. Has there been a study done to see what the hospitalization rates are for other non-HIV illnesses or problems associated with intravenous drug use?
I'm not aware of the article that you're citing. As far as in Cabell County, I don't think we have a study that specifically addresses admission to hospital in relation to this. We have evidence regarding entry into recovery. We have evidence in regards to willingness to enter recovery after overdose. We also have evidence of improvement in addressing a very large HIV outbreak, but I don't think we have that hospital admission information.
Although we talk about needles all the time, there are, as you just stated, I think, other benefits of the program of needle exchanges, of being able to get people into various programs, that sort of thing, and reduce HIV, possibly.
Yes, it is, and certainly the actual needle aspect of it is its most misunderstood component. But as a touch point, as a place where people will go to receive public health intervention or even health care, especially linkage to care, either for hepatitis, for HIV, or for substance use treatment. The syringe service program is that essential touch point. And even though it's a very small part of the whole comprehensive effort, that's its essential nature. Without it, we don't have as successful a comprehensive program.
Now, my last question would be, in the September report, it said that, that's from the Cabell Hampton Health Department, the 13 new client visits were in the exchange program. 904 were return client visits, and it serviced 333 individuals. I'm assuming that the 333 came maybe 3 times in the same month. But 18 were tested for Hep B, C, HIV, sexually transmitted diseases, and TB. So out of those visits in September, it doesn't seem like there were a lot to be tested. What's the process for testing, and can they opt out? Is it required? Like, say, we're going to give you free needles, but you're going to get tested so that we can know that you're not spreading it to the community. Does that take place?
Yeah, the testing is out for new clients. We test new clients unless they refuse the testing, and they have the right to refuse.
And what about the ones that are return clients?
We test on we try to test every 3 months. If we get them every 6 months, we're pretty well satisfied. The standard is to test once a year.
And so can HIV be spread only through clean needles, or, I mean, it can be spread other ways, correct?
HIV is spread sexually or through injection and sharing of infected injection equipment.
And we're assuming people living in these drug house conditions aren't participating in other ways of spreading HIV. I mean, they can still get it, right?
Yes, our goal is to eliminate all HIV transmission.
Well, my vote's going to be no. It's evident that I understand the reason why public health wants to do this. You know, I mean, there's a mindset that it could reduce the transmission of HIV, but I know of other communities and counties that don't, and they still have drug use, and they're still not having outbreaks. I mean, that information, I mean, that may change. But one of the reasons why I'm really kind of discouraged is I had asked for an audit of the Cabell Hampton Health Department of the needle exchange program, because to me, information is power. You need to be able to make good decisions based upon information that you receive. And the people of Kanawha County were able to have DHHR audit their syringe service program, and they subsequently had to close down because if you look at the recommendations on that, it just wasn't done right. And I'm not sure how the Cabell Hampton Health Department program differentiates from the one that was closed down in Kanawha, but we don't know that because we didn't have that ability to have the evaluation and the audit of the program itself. I'm not talking about a financial audit. I'm talking about an audit of the program itself and how it operates and is it successful. I think that the citizens need to have those answers, and so that was rejected just to get an audit, and so until such time, I'm not going to lend my support. But I do appreciate the work that you do. I think you all done a great job with COVID and keeping our food supply safe.
As they say, is this a
Okay.
question or a speech?
Well, you can
May
call
Okay.
it what it is.
May I respond?
Yes.
I understand that you're disappointed that you did not receive an audit. This puts us under OFLAC, and there is a method for requesting a review from OFLAC of our program, and you will be able to receive. That's why I say this makes us more accountable. And if this is passed, and if we become licensed, OFLAC will address those issues.
I would like to move the approval of the request from the Cabell Hunting Health Department that they are seeking in its licensure of the syringe service program to comply with licensure requirements enacted by the West Virginia Legislature in 2021. I so move. Is there a second?
She says she lost us.
Hello?
Hello, we lost you, I guess, huh?
I noticed.
Sorry
You were
about
just
that.
gone.
I made a motion that Grace might be able to read back to me.
You made a motion what? I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Well, I was going to ask Grace to read it, but it was that the commission approved the request of the health department needs to seek licensure of its syringe service program to comply with the licensure requirements enacted by the West Virginia Legislature in 2021.
Okay, I can second that motion.
Okay. We've had discussion, lengthy.
Right.
Even, then in that case, the question is on the approval of their request. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed?
No.
The motion passes to approve their request. And next we would have on the agenda, item number 279, placement agency engagement letter for the potential insurance of revenue bonds by the Cabell County Commission of Cabell County. Is that,
That's part of the bond,
This is on the 10-year,
yeah. the
Right.
bond-
Which-
Bond issue.
which they're actually not moving forward with at the moment, but they
Right.
wanted to go ahead and get the engagement letter signed.
Right. And I would recommend that we do that.
And I move to approve.
Second?
been moved and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have next on the agenda, item number 280, resolution of the Cabell County Commission in a matter of adoption of the proposed precinct changes within Cabell County.
I would move to approve map number 1, which I think divides us into 3 districts.
You're too soon on that. This is the precincts.
Oh, we're on the precincts now, okay.
Right. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of the proposed precinct changes?
Yeah, I would make that motion as well.
But the precincts need to match the magisterial districts, correct? Or no? Okay. Because I thought we'd be putting the cart before the horse. I'll second that.
It's just the way it's on the agenda, and we'll get there.
It'll run again, this one will run again next, on our next agenda too, it has to run twice, so.
Okay, all in favor of the adoption of the proposed precinct changes signify by saying aye.
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 Next is the item number 281, resolution of the Cabell County Commission in the matter of establishment of precinct locations within Cabell County. And some of them changed.
Just very few, I think, Marie read, you know, wouldn't let us go back there, so we had to find another place.
Do I
And I
have,
so move.
we have a motion
Second?
and a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The resolution passes concerning the precinct locations. Item number 282 is a resolution of the Cabell County Commission in the matter of establishment of county executive committee districts. That would be Democratic and Republican executive committees.
I have a question for Phyllis. Was there
Shoot.
input by the county executive committees from both parties, or, I mean, are they aware of those changes, or?
Well, the Democrats had a meeting, I think, and we supplied the information to them. I've not heard from the Republicans regarding it. I mean, it's done up by population. So, I mean, we can't let other people in it. He has to figure what's the proper amount of people.
Oh, I understand
within
that. I
5%,
just
so-
wondered if they both, had any input
No.
or looked at it or had
No.
any.
Haven't heard from him other than I know the Democratic Executive Committee asked for it.
Is there a motion to establish the districts for the county executive committees? If not, I will move that we approve that resolution.
I'll second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Next is the resolution of the Cabell County Commission in the matter of adoption of the realignment of the magisterial districts of Cabell County.
I so move. Map number 3. I think it's the first map, but it's divides us into 3.
I think that's map number 1.
Right.
I will second that.
Well, I think.
And now, Kelly, go ahead.
Well, how does that work when we have two, this is a question for council, we have two maps before us? I know like some of the counties, had like 8 maps to consider, so how does that work in order? I mean, if you have one that just comes up and 2 are gonna vote for it, then that doesn't give an opportunity to discuss both of those. So should there not be an explanation of both maps that are before us, and then we can make that determination based upon the information provided?
I would think, because I remember earlier you were talking about a 5 magistrate.
Well, we're under 5 now.
Yeah.
We're under 5, and I think maybe, I haven't looked back, I couldn't find it actually, but to see how long we've been under 5 magisterial districts, but you can have anywhere in code between 3 and 11.
Right.
So the
10.
5, is it 10?
10.
5 and 10, so we're right in the middle.
10.
Yeah, we're in the middle, sort of, by having the 5 magisterial district component. So I thought we should have discussion on both maps before you all just throw one up there and vote on it.
You're on the floor.
But we already have a motion to adopt one over the other, and we haven't had that discussion.
Well, I'm suggesting if you wish to have a discussion, have it.
Yeah, that, with your request to me, I would think that's appropriate. If you want to discuss a different map, then the floor would be yours.
The,
Who has the floor?
the whole issue of the maps, was brought about by an act of the United States government called the census. After the census, every 10 years, maps are redrawn. And anybody who does not realize that the drawing of maps has created some conflicts within various states and other places hasn't paid much attention to that. This county got their information basically in October and needed to wait until the state had decided, the Senate and the House, where their boundaries would be because of not being able to cross delegate lines and that sort of thing. They finished their work, I think the Senate did, on October the 25th. There have been some questions asked as to why we did it. We did it to bring the county into districts that are of plus or minus 5% equal population, and as near as possible into equal land size. A comment was made at some time, not by the commission, suggesting why not try 3 districts. A 3-district map was drawn by Mr. McKenzie. There has been a question as to what Mr. McKenzie's qualifications and talents are. Maybe not talents, but Mr. McKenzie's qualifications. He's a graduate of the University of Kentucky with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering and Mining Engineering, a registered professional mining engineer, a West Virginia real estate broker, and also holds the distinction of being licensed to fly remote planes for observation, I guess, and mapping purposes. Mr. McKenzie lives in Summersville. He did the mapping for Cabell County after the 2010 census. And the maps that were drawn because of several things. One was Cabell County lost 2,619 citizens, population less that much between 2010 and 2020. And from the western end of the county, 2,987 persons moved from the western end of the county to the eastern end of the county by precincts and other methods of counting. That left an imbalance of 10% in a couple of the districts. A larger portion of Cabell County's population still is in the western part of the county, and there's no way to get around that because that's where Huntington is. And with the exception of some population as you go up the interstate, the rest of the area north of the interstate and south of the interstate in the eastern part of the county is sparsely settled. So therefore, when a map was drawn, the three-district map was drawn, which met the qualifications of what the requirements are. The three-district map preserves political education executive committees, which we just talked about. The Board of Education finds that it's most suitable to them. In the three-district map, there will be a Cabell County Commissioner living in each district. And as far as the Board of Education is concerned, there will be a member of the Board of Education from each district. As it is now with 5 districts, whether it be a commissioner or the Board of Education, there can be 2 districts that have no representation directly by a person living in that area. The maps are drawn basically on reasonable guidelines using natural divisions and highways and various things. So it's easier to figure that out. And by the time frame that we had to work with, 30 days notice, public notice, and then taking it up at this meeting, we now are at this point of having a 3-district, and Commissioner Sabanya asked for a 5-district map, which was drawn and has been on display, as has the 3-district map, in the clerk's office for 30 days. The motion was to approve the 3-district map. If you would like to say something about the 5-district map, go right ahead.
Well, I mean, you are correct. Cabell County's population has decreased from 96,319 down to 94,350. And there has been a population shift to the eastern part of the county, and we have lost a congressional seat. And this is going to be the first election, I guess, in history of the state where we'll have 100 single-member district delegates, where you don't have multiple member delegates representing a certain pocket of the county. So it is going to be a lot of information to process, by the voters, because they're going to have, changes in their legislative delegation and the number of delegates that they have. They're going to have changes in their precincts and where they vote. So there is quite a bit to consider, and that's kind of out of our power. But at the same time, we do have the determination to make as an elected body to run our magisterial boundaries. We have always operated, from where I can find, under a 5 magisterial district scenario. And, we have the 5-member now, or the 5 magisterial now. We have 3 members of the county commission. I know Wayne County just recently changed theirs from 5 to 4. They still have 3 commissioners, but they elected to keep more magisterial districts than what they have commissioners. But you know, the thing is, like when I went to run for, and this has nothing to do with politics because, you know, it's a map. But at the same time, when you go to file for a county commission seat, you have, currently under Cabell County, under 5, you can have people, candidates coming from 3 different magisterial districts. It doesn't have to be from that one magisterial district. So you can have more people running for office in the scenario that we have now, under the maps we have now. And so if we adopt a 3-member district, even though the magisterial districts grow larger, it still limits people to be in that one little magisterial district if they seek to run for public office. As I said before, you know, I think Logan County considered 8 different maps. In Fayette County, they had multiple map scenarios, and we here have 2 that we put out for public comment. I'm not sure how much public comment we received. It wasn't, you know, overwhelming. But I don't know what motion's on the table. I'd like to make my own motion to have a 5-member district. I do have a question, either to our council or maybe the clerk. We received on our listserv from the Association of County Commissioners a communication at the end of November, and it was forwarded to us, and it was from Don Kersey, who's I guess the counsel for the Secretary of State's office. And he said something. He said, because your county clerks and staff, many of your county commissions are redistricting magisterial boundaries to account for the population changes reported in the recent census. In those counties, prospective candidates for county commission or county board of education have asked many of you whether they reside in the open district for the upcoming 2022 election. Unfortunately, this issue is not settled. The Attorney General's office is reviewing the law and relevant cases now. They are in the middle of preparing for oral argument before the Supreme Court of the United States in December, so their opinion may not come until January. Are you aware, either of you, of an open district by which has been moved to the Supreme Court for that determination, since the maps have come in so late and you have people who already want to run? Is that taking place? Are you aware of that? Anybody?
Current incumbents reside in appropriate districts, and the time frame to file for office is January the 10th is the opening date for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see that whatever point you were making is a point to be made.
Well, that part of the communication mentions prospective candidates to the county commission. Now,
Right.
further in that, it talks about a case of Burkhart versus Sign that pertained to the sitting county officials, and if they were moved out of the magisterial district, they could still serve out their term, even though they didn't live in that current magisterial district. They would have to answer to that at the next election. So I think those were 2 different.
I don't think they have an answer on it. I think that's gone to the Attorney General's office, and there's no answer on it.
Okay, but we should have something like that in.
I don't think we have the issue,
Well,
because we have incumbents living in the districts.
But that doesn't just pertain to incumbents, it pertains to prospective candidates.
Well,
I was just wanting to get that clarification, because that is something that's in the court, I believe, correct?
I was told it was with the Attorney General's.
if you hand me a Kleenex or 2.
Oh, you open this stuff?
Yes, please.
All right.
I think I'm allergic to cold weather.
You're built backwards. Your feet smell and your nose runs.
That's a pretty good one.
What was, you on Hee Haw, is that where you?
Yeah,
was
yeah,
at years ago?
that's probably right.
Sorry.
Hmm?
I gave you a copy of that response, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
this one?
I don't know that for sure, I just thought, somebody saying that Judge Pratt was on that board. That's him right there. Don't know, just thinking.
You didn't spend hardly any money this time.
Okay, try that again.
Been modified.
Mhm.
Did you see where Jeffrey Porter, seeing Lisa Porter in here, got quoted in the Wall Street Journal on how to save, how to plan ahead and shift your income around and end up with the government paying you instead of you paying the government?
Yeah.
Better, maybe we better, I better talk to him. He was the treasurer for the symphony for a while, I
Mhm.
think. Boy, $11,000 to Keaton, we might as well bought a new car.
Yeah.
Guess I can live with those. All right, used to say the big hand was on and the little hand, but now the numbers say 10. So we will begin with a prayer and a pledge. Call to order the meeting of the Cabell County Commission for Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021 at 10 o'clock. Regular commission session in the third floor, room 300, Cabell County Courthouse. Let us pray. Most gracious Father, on a day like this, we can honestly say this is the day the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. What beautiful weather. We thank you for this blessing and all the blessings. And as we approach Thanksgiving, may we all pause and remember all those blessings that we have been given. We would ask that you be with elected officials, uniformed personnel, frontline defenders, as we go about our work. Guide us and direct us as you would have us to go. All this we ask in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to everybody that's here. The first item on our agenda, as always, is to approve the agenda. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
We've moved and seconded. All in favor would signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The agenda is approved. Next on the agenda would be to approve the minutes of the regular commission meeting on October 28th, from October 28th, 2021. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve.
Been
Second.
moved and seconded that the minutes be approved. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Next is to approve the erroneous assessments, land consolidation, split tickets, probate documentation from the county clerk's probate office. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approval would signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That is approved. Next, we approve purchase orders number 22-106220 through number 22-106422. Pay jackets, monthly payments to Fifth Third for fuel card purchases, handwritten checks to Unum for $8,399.46, and to Guardian for $20,617.70. Have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 That is approved. Next on the agenda would be citizens registered to speak, and we have some citizens registered to speak. I would remind you that we do have a time limit, and every now and then somebody does even get close to it. But nonetheless, first signed up to speak is Kathy McKenna from the Greater Huntington Parks and Recreation Board.
Good morning. Thanks for having us here today. I'm just here today to speak about the redistricting that you all are looking at and going from 5 districts down to 3. That would have a significant impact on the Greater Huntington Park and Recreation District's board members. It has the possibility of taking us from our current 11 board members down to 7. And going to that smaller number, we lose a lot of history with our current board members, a lot of knowledge that they have, a lot of information that they bring to the table with all of their years of service. Also, the Park District board members are elected commissioners, however, they are not paid. So really, as far as a financial impact, that has no financial impact on the Park District as far as that goes. So anyway, I'd just like to bring that to your all's attention and recommend that you all continue with the 5 districts that we currently have. Thank you.
You're created by an act of the legislature,
Correct.
and that is written into the act, is it not?
It's that the legislation is written that we have 2 commissioners from each magisterial district, with one additional one from the Westmoreland district.
Okay. Next is Devin Sloan.
Yep, that's me. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you guys again. I was here probably about 2 or 3 months ago representing Green Acres Regional Center and the Hope for the Future levy. We want to formally present a written document here to ask for permission to get on the levy that will be next May, I think 10th of 2022, I believe. So if you don't mind, I'll read as quickly as I can what we would like to submit to you as far as an introduction and to go on from what we are. So, dear commissioners, the Green Acres Regional Center would like to respectfully request that the Cabell County Commission once again consider and approve the placement of Green Acres Regional Center Incorporated on the May 10th, 2022 ballot for the Cabell County voters to consider. In order to maintain our current level of services to both our employees with disabilities and to our customer base throughout the county, it is imperative that we maintain the excess levy at a level that currently meets the present economic structure the center now faces. The current excess levy will expire June 30th, 2022. Just for some information here, since 1968, Green Acres has been a staple and source of pride for the Cabell County community. As with any organization or business, regardless of the mission or service provided, time and circumstances affect both and create the need for adjustments and change to meet the present and future needs in order to survive. This is exactly what Green Acres has faced many times since its inception. Green Acres is a unique facility that has 2 driven and important heartbeats. The first is the world-class award-winning water that lies just below our beautiful campus. And please, if you ever get a chance, please come and tour the campus. It's absolutely phenomenal. The second and most important heartbeat is our people. Our employees work hard and with passion, desire, and pride to bring our products to the customer. Our employees maintain this on a daily basis while overcoming all the many varieties of obstacles that the rest of us can only begin to imagine. Green Acres provides a solid base for self-worth and personal development that can only be matched by a select few programs. Green Acres offers opportunities to those with disabilities in a society that provides little help to meet their needs. The work ethic that is maintained at the center is based on the idea of compassion and individualism that each person needs to be successful. The center maintains the perception that everyone can contribute in their own way. The ideal that every person under the Green Acres umbrella is integral to the center's well-being and success. Even with the evolution and changes Green Acres has had to face, the mission stands steady and has never wavered since 1968. The mission continues to maintain a comprehensive continuum of service to support skill development and assist developmentally disabled adults in Cabell, Lincoln, Wayne, and Mason counties to function at their maximum potential. Green Acres is so much more than just a water provider. The water is strictly a pathway to personal success. Excuse me. A little nervous, guys, because this is so important. And self-worth for those with disabilities. We're a business. Our business is providing those who need help and opportunity they can get nowhere else. Nothing has changed since 2016 when the last excess levy for the support of Green Acres levy successfully passed. Actually, the fact that Green Acres has expanded our scope to support more opportunities for people with disabilities. By creating new partner customer opportunities through the expansion of services such as private labels, expanded delivery areas, and most importantly, a training site for other organizations such as Goodwill, of which last week we were awarded the Employer of the Year for 2020-2021, among others, to provide their people with firm and realistic environment to train for future employment. Green Acres may be one of a kind and a beacon of light in providing this service to the disabled community. Our programs are targeted to provide work experience training, and it remains our #1 goal and focus. Employees bottle cap, label, package, and deliver water pumped from our on-site wells. Every employee, with the exception of one brand new hire, makes more than minimum wage. The goals that our employees reach every day is incredible. On average, Green Acres produces over 500 5- and 3-gallon bottles per day. We bottle, cap, package, and sell around 10,000 16.9-ounce bottles of world-class water, and this is accomplished by people, not machines. Over 1.9 million gallons of water has already passed through the tanks this year. However, our mission is not the amount of production we achieve, but the opportunities for jobs that are created for those with disabilities. Green Acres' reach goes well beyond the little campus in Lee Sage. It is truly amazing what's being created within our boundaries. The jobs are here, providing water to hundreds of customers and thousands of individuals within Cabell County, as well as unlimited outside opportunities, helps generate monies for the local economy. Green Acres does business predominantly in Cabell County, however. Some of these include Cabell Huntington Hospital, St. Mary's Hospital, Special Metals, Tudors, Hillbilly Hot Dogs, Stewart's Hot Dogs, Java Jones, Valley Health, Dixon Electric, Marshall University, the Huntington Chamber of Commerce, Republic Services, Guyan Country Club, Western Regional Dale, Landscaping by Hillcrest, River City Superfood, Ohio Valley Bank, Dutch Miller, just to name a few. The supports these businesses provide, along with the excess levy funding, provide the opportunities that our employees depend on for their day-to-day well-being. Green Acres on a daily basis touches thousands of Cabell County citizens through their purchases and consumption. Opportunities are not just limited to people employed directly at Green Acres. Through the West Virginia State Youth Program and individual partnerships with other like facilities like Green Acres provides opportunities to others around the state with disabilities by helping generate revenue to operate their programs. The success stories that have been created here are numerous. The opportunities are limited and shown through these success stories. Many of our employees have been trained here, have gone on to continue and enjoy employment in many occupational areas, including Amazon, Walmart, Heritage Farms, United Postal Service. The skill set and interaction to the employment world was gained and mastered for success right here on our campus. There are so many facets to Green Acres that go unnoticed. Green Acres Regional Center Incorporated reaches out in a variety of ways to the local community. Many citizens get their seasonal flowers and plants from our greenhouse. Groups such as the Garden Clubs of Huntington, Beverly Hills, Salt Rock have all enjoyed and shown passion for both fundraising opportunities as well as consumption of safe drinking water. The state, as well as local companies and communities, have called on numerous occasions during times of emergency and disaster. We have always been there to help, and with the continued support from the county citizens, we will continue to be. Green Acres Regional Center Incorporated strives to be self-sufficient, but that time has not yet come. We are still dependent on Cabell County levy and the excess levy for our survival. Nearly 40% of our revenue comes from the excess levy. We continue to do all we can to help ourselves, but the increases in operational expenses, repair costs, and basic operating needs leaves a void that the excess levy helps to fill. Green Acres, in conclusion, is a wonderful place with the world's best water, but more importantly, the world's best people. And I thank you for your time. If I went beyond 5 minutes, I do apologize.
If you did exceed it,
talk for hours.
if you did exceed it, you did your best not to say that.
A little nervous. It's very important.
We have two other folks, Matthew Muller, who is also from Green Acres.
I'll go last. Thank you. Pratt's on there after Matt, but I'm probably the most senior member. I think I am the most senior member of the advisory board of directors for Green Acres Regional Center. I've been a board member there since 1985. Want to apologize for Rick Hanley, who is one of your counterparts in Mason County, who was not able to be here today because his mother went back into the hospital last night, so he was not able to. I'm vice president. He asked me to be here. Devin can tell you everything there is to know about Green Acres. He's probably the most senior employee there at Green Acres as executive director. But Green Acres was started, was by an act of the legislature in 1968, and also about 1970. It was incorporated as a nonprofit, and it worked very well as long as it was a residential facility for helping the developmentally disabled people of Cabell, Wayne, Mason, and Lincoln. Because of their change in philosophy of the treatment for the mental health individuals and citizens, and also because of some legislative action, they deinstitutionalized the people that resided at Green Acres. They also closed the school that existed at Green Acres because they mainstreamed those students back into the public schools in the counties. They had Marsh University provided the special education instructors there for those students, and they bused them in from the separate counties. Also, they closed the residence and put people in apartments or group homes in the community to mainstream those people as well. So no residents on Green Acres at that point in time. So in the mid-'80s, things began to change for Green Acres. The county commission saw fit to try to help Green Acres and put Green Acres on a levy call by 1982, I think, was the first time. And it has passed by great majorities every time it's been on the ballot. They have gotten to the point where the only vocational programs that they have there to continue is the agricultural program and the water, the Sage Wells. It can't support the water, and the agricultural cannot support Green Acres on its own. Neither can the levy money support Green Acres on its own. But by accommodation of the two and the work of these two individuals and a lot of other people at Green Acres, there are 37 or 38 Cabell County residents that are employed there at this point in time. Don't know how many there are from the other counties, but they are the special people that Green Acres was set and established to serve. A lot of influential people in Cabell County started this in 1968 because they saw a need. The philosophy of mental health treatment changed over the years. The original charter and bylaws called for 15 members of the advisory board, 8 from Cabell County, 4 from Wayne County, 2 from Mason County, and 1 from Lincoln County. There's currently, I think, in Cabell County, we've got Lisa Clary, who is a former employee of Green Acres, John Cummins, retired judge of Cabell County, Joy Combs, are Cabell County members, myself, and Randall Troutline, who lives in Wayne County, is a lawyer here in town. Brandy Davis, a realtor in Calhoun, Wayne County, and Anna Stedman, I think she is a parent, is the Wayne County board member. And Rick Hanley, I believe, is the only Mason County board member at this time. I think we have one pending, and Nate Olson, that is pending seating him as a board member, but he hasn't been there at the meeting yet. Green Acres is a source of pride for Cabell County. These different agencies throughout the state of West Virginia who has delivered the sage water for them to sell at a profit to support their facilities, deals with the same developmentally disabled individuals. And it's far reaching. It goes from every corner of West Virginia and every agency such as Green Acres that are supporting them. So it's a source of pride. It's brought some notoriety to Cabell County. It serves mainly Cabell County residents. And we're here today just to encourage the county commission to leave Green Acres at its rate on the levy call for next year. And thank you all for your time.
Any of the commissioners have any questions?
I just don't know.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, go right ahead.
Do any of the other counties who participate in your programs and have people serving on your board contribute financially to Green Acres?
I'll answer part of that. This is Darrell Pratt. We did, in the 80s, the school system supported that Green Acres because they had their school children attending the school there at Green Acres. Since the school has shut down, I'm not sure that Wayne County contributes anything, and I don't know about Mason County contributing anything. It is I've heard it said that Green Acres is not what it used to be. That's true. It is on a smaller scale, but it still serves the same mission that it was started for in 1968. And you all have, in Cabell County, have 38 residents that certainly benefit, and whatever Wayne and Mason have is also the benefit to their communities as well. I don't know any other, you all know anything about other?
No, there's nothing as far as for Lincoln, Mason, or Wayne counties as far as that goes. The only thing that Mason County really receives from Green Acres that would be beneficial, which it is a big thing because it also includes myself, I'm a Mason County citizen, is I'm paid through Green Acres. You know, that's where I make my livelihood at Green Acres. But other than that, as far as any return financially that would affect Mason County or Wayne or Lincoln counties, there would be no return. Matt, who will speak next, he will give you a little information about how what we do generates funding from outside of the county that comes into the county that benefits Cabell County. So basically any financial type revenue gaining strictly goes to Cabell County other than what is, what we do in the payroll as far as, and I think there's 6 citizens outside that are Mason Countyans, and I don't know, there might be 1 or 2 Wayne County that receive payroll from Green Acres. But there's no return as far as revenue generated for those counties.
I know that the state of West Virginia used to contribute. Do they still contribute to Green Acres?
No, ma'am, that's, I went back and it's very interesting. I found a newspaper a snippet that was in there. Back in 2006, there was actually over a $5 million revenue generated through Green Acres of monies. And I think when I was here the last time, the question was something to the effect that, what did other places like the state, did we look into the state and federal and what happened to those funding sources? Really, those funding sources, after I've really looked into it, I should have told you the last time and known this, but that was just for services rendered, basically, that was from like ICF funding for the beds and stuff through the residential units and stuff like that. But to be saying that the money came through just to help generate the programs and stuff at Green Acres through the state or federal, that didn't happen. That's to my knowledge. It was just from services rendered, whether it be a food program or like I say, the ICF beds or Medicaid or something of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
Another speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, defer to Matt.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to approach this from a little bit of a different angle than Devin and Judge. The Judge was talking about the pride that Green Acres hopefully produces. And I'll just give you a quick story.
Sir, I'm sorry, you can state your name.
Matthew Muller.
Matthew Muller. Thank you.
Yep. As the sales manager, I handle the vast majority of all the sales, and I'll just give you a quick story about one particular sale that happened a couple months ago. I was contacted by a gentleman that owns a physical therapy business, and he contacted us on our website, and I called him back, and in the process of talking to him, I asked him, I said, what kind of a business do you have? He says, it's physical therapy. I said, oh, that's cool. I said, so, you know, how much do you know about us? And he said, well, I've done my research, and I got on your website, and I know what you're all about. I know you employ people with developmental disabilities. He said, I know that your water has won the gold medal at the Berkeley Springs International Water Tasting Competition. And he said, I also know that you do personalized labels on your 16.9 ounce bottles. I said, yeah, that's absolutely true. And he said, so we talked a little bit more about doing business, and I said, by the way, where are you located? He said, San Dimas, California. Now, for those of you who may not know, San Dimas is a suburb of Los Angeles, California. And I laughed and I said, okay, you know we're in West Virginia, right? He said, yes, I absolutely do know you're in West Virginia. And I said, and you know water is not light. It costs money to ship it. He said, yes, I know that. And at that point, I knew he was gonna, so the short story is, about a month ago, we shipped 1,200 bottles to San Dimas, California. He paid for the shipping. And after he said he paid for everything, I had gotten on his website because I wondered, who is this guy? And if you think about Los Angeles physical therapy, I got on his website and started looking at his clientele. His clientele includes world-class National Football League, Major League Baseball, National Basketball Association, actors, famous singers. These are his clientele. And he called us up and said he wanted our water delivered to his place because he wanted to give it to his clientele. And I said, I will absolutely send this water out to you. So we got his label done. We shipped it out about a month ago. Like I said, we shipped out an entire pallet. And I was talking to him yesterday, and I said, does everybody love the water? He says, yeah, absolutely. And the thing is about those 1,200 bottles, every one of those bottles was filled by a human being. Every bottle was capped by a human being. Every bottle was labeled by a human being, not machines. And every one of these human beings has some form of a developmental disability. So there's one facility in the United States, one, that can say, we're the ones who did that. Because there's only one facility, bottling facility I'm talking about, that employs people with developmental disabilities. It's here in Cabell County. It's nowhere else. There's one in the United States, it's here in Cabell County. And I would think that, I would hope that the people, the leaders of Cabell County, and I can tell you right now, every person that I deal with, business owners, people that just homeowners that get our water, when I tell them the story, they say that's the coolest thing, you know? And I would hope that everybody in Cabell County would be proud of the fact that we are shipping water 2,500 miles across the United States. That guy had plenty of other choices. He chose us, and he chose us because he knew what our mission is, and he valued the water. So I just wanted to give you one story. I could tell you stories all day, but that just happened about a month ago, and so thank you for your time, and I hope that's something that you guys can appreciate. Yes.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I do thank you for your invitation to tour your facility months ago, and I did learn a lot after touring that. And I got to talk to some of your employees who are developmentally disabled, and asking them what would you do if you didn't have this job. And there's a concern that they would be staying at home isolated, and this gives them some type of camaraderie and friendship that they wouldn't have apart from this program. Having said that, I know I had raised this question before. As you know, Autism Services was connected to the levy, and I have been reached out by some of the board members for Autism Services, likewise concerned that if this levy does not move forward, that there's going to be a lack of funding and continued programs. Have you all had that collective, collaborative discussion to move forward together as it was in the past?
Yeah, and I'll let Devin answer that because that's more of a, but I will tell you that I spoke with, I think his name's Jimmy Byrne. I spoke with him very briefly on the phone. I've never met the man, and I called him up, and so I talked to him very briefly about it. My understanding, and I could be wrong about this, so don't take this as the fact, but my understanding was, it almost seemed to me like he was gonna try to get on separately. I don't know if that's the case. But that's as much as I know about the two, entities going in together. But Devin may know more about that.
Information kind of gotten, it was, I took over about 2 years ago as administrator or director. Basically, I've done the job what I'm doing now for probably the last 10, 12 years, but some things I was not involved in. And so inadvertently, the information didn't get passed to me, or we would have actually applied last year to get on the levy like we were before with the TTA and the others that were on there. I think there were 7 that were on there. And so finding that out, I think I called like in October here of last year, and I think I talked to Ms. Thompson at that time, and I asked, what we need to do to get on the levy, and it was like, I think that her, she said, well, we were too late, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So through talking with her and stuff, we found out that, and so I kind of did and so I called Autism. I called there and I talked to a lady there, and I don't know her name off the top of my head. She was like the vice chairman, the vice president, or whatever. And I said, do you realize that we did not get on the levy? And I know they are 10% of the entire amount of the levy. That's whatever the figure. And she didn't know that, and I didn't know much about it either. And I said, well, I just thought maybe you guys just didn't need the money anymore, and you knew about it, and you just didn't get on there either. And she said, oh Lord, no, we need money too as well. And I said, okay. So she said, well, then you need to talk with the chief, our CFO. So I called twice there and left messages for them to return a call to me, and for some whatever reason, there was no call ever returned. So that's all I know as far as Autism Services goes. We have no problem with sharing that. We're all in the same field together, trying to create the same opportunities and things together, and I don't, just want you guys to know, and you're well aware of the changes have happened and stuff. We are trying to do for ourselves so much more than what we had to do before. Like I said, we had a $5 million budget. And a lot of that stuff, you know, that would help with the programs and stuff that we did. We don't have that anymore. We're less, we're like $1.7 million, and so, which is, that's a lot of money, but in turn, just here recently, gas prices, when we send our trucks out, and we do stuff that other places don't. We actually bring folks in. We go get people with disabilities at their homes, and we take them to Green Acres where they can work and give them that opportunity. We work with Goodwill. We work with these other organizations to try to make it convenient. If a guy can only work 2 days a week, if he can work 3 days a week, we try to meet those, and we do whatever it is to help them be successful at whatever their highest level can be. And so that's where, it just like I said, gas prices went on a simplified level. When it went from $2 to $3, right there, our expenses 1/3 increase just like that. And that's not going to mention our natural gas and our materials and all those kind of things that matter. That everything is going up. So, and then our payroll and stuff, you know, just because you have a disability, does that mean you should make minimum wage the rest of your life? No. And all those guys, they've got increases and stuff just like anyone else, and that's what we strive to be, to make their lives as pleasant and normal as they possibly can be. And I thank you for your time, I really do. And may God be with all of us, and may God be with Green Acres. So thank you guys.
Were you all, you weren't organized to an act of the legislature?
Well, the notebook that I have indicates that at that time, Governor Smith, I think it was.
Whoever.
Governor Smith proposed it. And I thought that there was a House bill or a Senate bill that actually approved organizing a regional mental health treatment center. Not Pressed Air, not the way Pressed Air was organized, but it was cited in our paperwork. I've never researched it, but it's 1968.
You have
Thinking about it.
talked to, if you take Cabell, Wayne, Mason, and Lincoln, you probably got 8 to 12 delegates and 2 or 3 senators. You asked them for any money?
They've all been contacted, asked for money, and also asked to encourage the continuation of the levy call. And I don't say they all have been, but several of them have.
Right. Well, naturally, we will accept whatever you're going to give us and make some decision as to whether that, the amount that would come off the levy, I mean, the percentage and that sort of thing, after we see what you've got in the package that you're going to give us.
Well, basically, I don't, as far as financial numbers to give you, I mean, I can give you, but I mean, we're not, we just want to stay pat what we were now, is what we're looking at, because with the increase in prices and things that we're doing, I mean, that, we're not asking for any more, but I can't imagine anybody coming into this chamber and saying, hey, we need less money. I mean, that's just, this doesn't make good sense, really. We just want to be able to let the Cabell County citizens
No, I
give
could,
possibility.
I could just, I would encourage the public or whoever, policymakers to go out there and take a look at it and meet the clients and those that are working there at that facility. I know we're under the gun with putting it on before the commission for it to make it to the next, election for the levy vote. So I know the time is not on our side, so it's something that we definitely need to discuss quick and in a hurry, and I do pledge my support to have that discussion. And ultimately, it's, we're the first step to putting a levy out to the public as an elected body, but it also takes the public to cast that vote to place that upon themselves. And so perhaps, the media can get out there and start discussing the need for that, so that the public can have a greater understanding of the need to help those that are developmentally disabled.
And if I can, not to interrupt, but we always are totally open. I extend the invitation to anybody, the public, the county. I mean, I've had state delegates, state senators. I've had representatives from Joe Manchin and Shelley Moore Capito's office to come out and see us. So the invitation is always open to anybody that wants to come out and see us. We love having people come out and take a tour and see how our operation works. I also know, because we had gotten some figures from the assessor's office, I actually saw some numbers in terms of what it costs taxpayers. And for example, if I'm not mistaken, somebody that, for example, if they had a $500,000 home that was valued at $500,000, the amount of money that went to Green Acres was $65 for the year. Okay, so, spread out over Cabell County, this is not a huge amount of money. I mean, in my opinion, if somebody owns a $500,000 home and $65 per year goes to Green Acres, I would think that was a pretty good investment.
You didn't divide it up between Green Acres and Autism Services. You're talking
Right.
about the total levy.
Yes.
Well, you have, in this and other meetings, let us know of your need. And I guess, one of our questions is, obviously it's not running as it originally was set up to do, and we understand that's changed. And we also understand that there are at least 4 other counties who, as near as I can tell, are not supporting it. And from your conversation, they don't have any, other than board members, they don't have any clients from their counties who are at Green Acres, which may be defensible reason for them not to contribute. But as Commissioner Sabanya says, we'll take it under advisement and certainly give it our consideration so that we can get it on the ballot if we get it on the ballot. And we thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, and it's very important, and we appreciate your time.
Jim, I have one more question.
Sure, Nancy.
Can anyone tell me how much money you make each year from the sale of the water?
It's right around, it's a little, probably over $1 million with all with the two between the flowers and the bottled water. Because I think it was 1.8 million total with the levy and everything. And so I think the levy this year was around 700,000, so about 1.1 maybe. And that's amazing because if you look back at when we were doing the 5 million revenue, the water and the programs probably generated about 8% of the income at that time. Now we're doing, well, obviously the levy's 39-point-something% that helps us with, and 61% is coming from what we do ourselves. And that's just, guys, if people with disabilities, if you just come and visit and see, that's all I say. That's all we need to do.
And our expenses, I mean, this is what people don't understand, is that we operate, everybody thinks of us as a water producing facility, and we do produce water, but we are totally backwards from what a normal water producing facility is, because everybody else is automated. Everybody else uses machines. Our purpose, we want to get as many people with disabilities as we can. So, I mean, you know, the whole business aspect of it is just like totally upside down.
Any money generated through the levy or through what we produce and make there goes back into the hiring of more people with disabilities. I mean, we're a nonprofit organization, and that, you know, we're not banking $100 million somewhere or whatever. We pretty much, what we make and what we get from the county and the good citizens of Cabell County is the way we make do.
Well, as I say, we thank you. You've used up your 5 minutes. And we'll take that under advisement, discuss it. If we have any questions, we know where to find you.
Absolutely.
Judge?
Be excused.
Certainly. And anybody else who...
Can I leave this with you as the formal document to say?
Just give it to Ben.
Next item on the agenda would be to open the bids for the demolition of the Ona Field office and 2 adjacent buildings. And
Okay, the first one is from Roger Golden, or Goldizen.
Can you spell that?
Goldizen excavating. And total base bid is $146,000, and the company address is 98 Green Drive, Burton, West Virginia 25526. The second one here is from K&J Demolition. Total base bid is $28,700. The address for the company is 5141 Heath Creek Road, Barbersville, 25504. This is Gold Technical LLC. P.O. Box 311, Barbersville, West Virginia 25504. Total base bid $148,000. This one I haven't checked out. I'm not sure what this is.
They're paying us.
They're paying you, sweet. Well, I think maybe they paid their taxes and they've also seen it. Yeah. That's not different we need to look at.
Save us time.
Yeah. It says S&E Clearing and Hydro Seeding LLC, P.O. Box 277, Barney, West Virginia. Total base bid of $87,700.
Hmm?
It's for demolition only.
Yeah.
We need to amend that.
Safe Coast Services.
Two different things.
3082 South Highway 88, Dilliner, Pennsylvania, 15327. The total base bid of $90,000. So, we'll take those and look through them. I know a lot of it probably is going to depend on some of the bid for the actual construction, right, Chad? As to whether or not.
Yeah, we're not gonna tear it down.
Right, right.
Fine, we can't build it.
And of course, you have reserved the right to reject any and all bids.
Well, this is for the demolition?
Yes.
It says on our agenda for construction, should we amend that item to say for the
That's different. That's
demolition?
different.
Okay. Oh, I see it, okay, gotcha.
This was right under the Citizens Register to
Right.
speak, open bids for demolition.
2 different things.
Right,
Yeah.
I see that now.
Okay, we've got 5 bids.
Yes,
Chad will
yes.
look them over and let us know.
Does that include the asbestos removal?
That's already been
It's
done.
all been done. Accomplished. Next item is, item, as they all are, 21-11-23-271, petition to appoint an administrator for William Holly regarding the estate of William A. Holly II.
Mr. Holly passed away in September of this year. They never found any kind of will, so it would be an intestacy situation. More than 2 months have passed and nobody has come forward asking to be appointed as the representative of the estate. So they are requesting pursuant to the statutes that the sheriff be appointed as the administrator of this estate. And I would recommend that that would be the action that the commission should take.
Commissioner, do we have a motion on that?
I'll move to approve.
That's your direction?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct, right.
Well, we have a motion. I'll second that. All in favor of the petition to appoint the administrator for that estate, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes. Item number 272 is a resolution of the Cabell County Commission in the matter of opening bids for construction of a new building for the Cabell County Sheriff's Ona Field Office and Garage.
And this resolution moves that to December 9th. The original date was today. But there were certain issues that had come up during the mandatory pre-meeting, and so there were certain addenda to the plans, and those are being addressed, and this is giving the bidders time to get those questions answered.
Did the questions come up during the pre-bid meeting?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion for that.
Motion to approve. I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the resolution concerning the construction bids date. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Resolution is passed. We have now before us item number 273, a resolution of the Cabell County Commission in the matter of a resolution authorizing the signing of the grant contract between the West Virginia Division of Administrative Services, Justice and Community Services Section, and the Cabell County Commission for the purpose of providing funding for the Victims Advocate Office.
I so moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded, and it would seem to be $169,184. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor would signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, the resolution is passed. Item 274 is a resolution of the Cabell County Commission regarding the matter of the proposed realignment of magisterial districts of Cabell County. And that is a presentation of a public notice that indicates that the maps so far have been on display in the Cabell County Clerk's office, and that we would vote on the selection on December the 9th.
I move to approve.
And that is the two separate maps that we have before us,
It's all the
With
maps
the-
we have now.
with
Yeah.
the 3 and the 5.
Right.
We're just clarifying if we have 2 or 3 magisterial map and a 5-member, or a 5 magisterial map.
That's my understanding, yes. 2 maps.
Okay. I'll second to move it to December 9th.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Resolution is passed. Item number 275 is a letter binder from Chuck Zirkle, Cabell County Sheriff, of the delinquent list of sales, suspensions, and redemption 2020 delinquent real estate taxes. That's when he comes carrying that big thing in. Do we have a motion on that?
I so moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor would signify saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That item 275 is approved. Next item is item number 276, resolution for the employment of Timothy Harmon per diem EMT and Nathan Hunter Thompson per diem EMT, and reclassification of Jimmy Forrest to full-time paramedic.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor of the resolution would vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. The resolution is passed. Next item on the agenda is to place on record items to be recorded, minutes to be recorded. Cabell Huntington Health Department regular meeting September 22nd, 2021. Salt Rock Water Public Service District progress meeting October the 11th, 2021. and Salt Rock Water Public Service District regular meeting on October 12th, 2021. Other documents to be recorded include Cabell Huntington Health Department Board reports of October 2021, Culloden Volunteer Fire Department report on agreed upon procedures for period beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30, 2021.
I'm moved to place on record.
Been moved that we place those on record. It's been seconded. All in favor would signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those minutes will be so recorded and other documents. And the last item is Commissioners' Representation Reports, Good and Welfare for Cabell County.
I just have a question, I guess for Beth or whoever. Last night, the Huntington City Council approved of the needle exchange program for the health department, and that needs to go before us. Is there a time limit by which we need to make that determination?
I think it's January 1st.
So that would be on a future meeting,
If
near future?
they requested, yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah, they would have to ask to be on the agenda. I believe the deadline was January 1st, is that right, Jim?
When I saw Dr. Kilkenny yesterday, he said time was short.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, if there's no other business to come before the commission, we will sign various documents, look officially busy, and when we're finished, we will adjourn.